Hey, it's Rob Lightfoot, proud two-time alum of Rowan University.
And I'm Jessica Kennedy, also a two-time Rowan alum. And you're listening to
Beyond the Brown and Gold.
Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM presents Beyond the Brown and Gold, a show that highlights the lives and memories of Glassboro State and Rowan University alumni. Now, here are your hosts, Rob Lightfoot and Jessica Kennedy.
Up next on this episode. I'm trying to do my best Dan Baker impression. I cannot do it. His voice is iconic. Okay, you try.
Now podcasting for us.
For us.
No, I don't know. I can't do it either. But no, we got Dan Baker today. How cool is this?
I know. It was very exciting to have Dan Baker in studio because every time he spoke, it was like we were in Citizens Bank Park.
Yep.
Just listening to him. He has been the announcer for the Phillies for over 50 years, has announced 6 World Series. He's got such an awesome story about how he got started in the baseball world, and we were just kind of a little awestruck at having him.
I mean, if you grew up in Philly and you went to Veterans Stadium all those years, you know Dan Baker really, really well, and we got to learn more about him ourselves.
So let's talk about your time at Glassboro State. What year did you enter here?
1964-65.
And where were you from, and what were you hoping to study here at Glassboro?
Well, Jess and Rob, when I attended Glassboro State College, it was primarily a teacher preparation school, and I majored in junior high school education, and attended Mount Ephraim Public School. Actually, starting out, I was born in Philadelphia, lived there for the first 8 years of my life, attended first and second grade in Philadelphia Public Schools, 3rd through 8th in Mount Ephraim Public Schools, and then high school at Audubon High School in Audubon, New Jersey.
And were you hoping to become a teacher?
No. I mean, I did teach for 12 years, and I loved it very, very much. And there was, to me, there wasn't none then, nor is there now, a better teacher preparation institution than Rowan University. And I'm very proud of this school, and my goodness, what a wonderful education. And I played 2 years of junior varsity basketball here. I was the captain my sophomore year, suited varsity for 3 games. Did not play my last 2 years at Glassboro State, as I got a full-time job in television at WKBS-TV, Channel 48, which was located in Philadelphia. It was one of 3 UHF television stations that came on the air in the late 60s.
I forgot about that station.
And
I remember growing up.
It was Channel 48, Channel 17, and Channel 29 were the 3. And I started there.
As a student? You were a student still at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I had gone out for basketball as a junior and senior, I probably would have been, maybe the 12th man on a 15-man team.
Mm-hmm.
Not a starter, and not even, among the rotation of about 8 that play most of the time. The wit.
Yep.
Yeah. It listed the people coming back, in my junior year. But, by then I think I realized it was not going to... I suited 3 games for the varsity. I didn't get in one.
It wasn't going to be your career.
Yeah, so I wasn't jumping from there to the NBA.
Yeah.
So I thought, I wanted to be a sportscaster.
Oh, okay.
Phillies play-by-play announcer, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. Actually, there wasn't the Flyers when I started. The Flyers started, I think, 67 or 68. And I grew up with the Philadelphia Warriors in the NBA and rooted for them. Wilt Chamberlain, Tom Gola, Guy Rogers, Paul Arizin, and attended a lot of Phillies games as a kid. Was a pretty good baseball player. And at Audubon High School, I was on the freshman basketball team that was 21-0, and many people felt that it was the best freshman team in the state.
Yeah.
undefeated. I was probably the 15th man on a 15-man team. I played a lot
Yeah.
because we
You were
killed
very
people.
good.
No. I wasn't
Your team
bad.
was very
I
good,
wasn't bad. Also, as a freshman, I was the starting shortstop on both the freshman baseball team and the JV
Wow.
baseball team. My sophomore year, I was cut from the basketball team. Again, I should have seen it coming, but I was still
Little pie-eyed?
disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh, my. That undefeated freshman team was the nucleus of Audubon High School's 1963 Group 3 boys basketball champion. But I learned a lot from it. And one of the things I learned is, don't quit on yourself. Give it your all. And, if it's an athletic team or contest, event, try your best. If you fall a little bit short, there's no harm in that,
Take the risk.
But if you don't go out, you have no chance to make the
Yep.
team or do well. And so, I applied for a number of very significant jobs over the years. Been very, very fortunate to get a few of them, and some I did not. But, I wasn't going to make the mistake of taking myself out of the running.
Yeah, you got to go for it at least.
Because I might be one of only 50 people applying for a single job.
Right.
Damn the torpedoes.
Let's straight
full
ahead.
speed
Straight
ahead.
ahead. So let's go back to your high school there, that Audubon spot there.
Yeah.
Was college always in your, did your parents go to college, and was college always in your sights?
Yes, college is always in my sights. Both my mother and father went to college. Neither of them earned a college degree. My mother went to Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland.
Okay.
She's originally from Penns Grove, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And went to Penns Grove High School. Was a 1938 grad. And my father went to West Catholic and West Philadelphia High School. He attended the University of Pennsylvania. Again, did not graduate. But very smart man, as my mom was too. And in those days, this is back when women didn't get these opportunities. Nearly. It was like male-dominated. So families were very, very proud, when a lady got her college education. So my mother went 2 years to Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland, and 1 year to Goldie Beacon in
Wow.
Wilmington, which was a business school at that time. Now it's kind of expanded into a lot of other areas, as Rowan has, for heaven's sake. Look what Rowan University's become. But my public school experience in Philadelphia, Mount Ephraim, Audubon was terrific. For graduate school, I went to Temple University in Philadelphia, and I majored in like a hybrid communications education. It was called educational media. I graduated from here in '68 with a bachelor's in junior high school education, Temple in '72 with a master's in educational media.
And were you working at that TV station that time during your graduate degree as well?
No, I worked when I was an undergrad here, junior and senior. Ironically, my best academic work was as a junior and senior when I had a full-time job. When I started as a mailboy at Channel 48, I was earning the princely sum of $1.50 an hour.
Wow.
For 40 hours a week.
You were like rich.
$60. Well, I was in the high water, my goodness, high grass, whatever. That was nice, but I met a lot of people at Channel 48. I was also the backup ring announcer for the WWWF, which stands for Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
I do know that.
I introduced champions. Ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, he's wearing the green tights. He weighs 265 pounds from Abruzzi, Italy. The heavyweight champion of the world, Bruno Sammartino. They would ring the bell. Sammartino.
That's phenomenal. And where was it? Civic Center, or was it Spectrum? Or what?
No, it was at the Channel 48 studios,
Oh,
3201 South
Wow.
26th Street. although I didn't announce any of the wrestling matches at the arena, I attended a number of them. Vince McMahon Sr.,
Okay.
Vince McMahon Jr. just resigned his position. But his father was the head of wrestling when I was in college. One of the ring announcers, I've learned, well, number one, if I may, I'm digressing here, but I was always a good public speaker.
I was going to say, when did you learn to know, like, how did you know that you knew how to do that? Were you just practicing that kind of?
You want to know something?
Yes, yes.
My mother and father, though without degrees, were well educated, well read, spoken. They were sticklers of elocution and paid very close attention to my speaking and manners, and they were just wonderful parents. People say, what courses did you take? I spoke well because of the attention my mother and father gave me. I could always speak well. And my mom focused more on the grammatically correct English, subject-verb agreement,
Sure.
all of the grammatical things. My dad was focused more on communicating properly, looking someone in the eye when you speak with them, letting them know that you're interested in them. They have your attention, you have theirs. I mean, some people you talk with, they look at the floor, they look at the ceiling.
It's my 5-year-old.
He's still learning.
Leo, make eye contact.
There are some adults that, I was a terrific speller, and most of all, I love sports. I had scrapbooks of, the Phillies and Eagles, and newspaper clippings and box scores, and some of which I still have.
That's wonderful.
It's part of my collection.
So you had this great ability. You love sports. You had a great speaking ability. Were you a little kid practicing announcing? And like when I was little, I used to pretend I was on the radio on the beach. Were you practicing announcing your parents as they entered the room? Any siblings?
When I, Jess and Rob, when I played in like pickup basketball games in the schoolyard, I would announce, and I would pretend I was certain college players or pro players.
We all did that.
Yeah, and I tried to imitate the batting stance of, Richie Ashburn, or in those days, Dylan, this is the 50s, and the Whiz Kids who won the pennant in 1950. One of the two that I didn't announce when they got the World Series. In school, going way back to elementary school, junior high school, here at Glassboro State Temple, a lot of times my teachers, later professors, would pick me for assemblies to be like an MC, and I excelled at talking in front of people. It didn't matter. I mean, I've talked to as many as 175,000 at the Coca-Cola 500 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in North Carolina. I don't care how many are out there, and I love talking with people. I enjoy people very much.
Which is rare, right, for a young person, because normally young people are very nervous, but it seems like that was natural for you.
Well, you know what? I mean, I excelled in that. I think in God's wisdom, Rob and Jess, He endows us all with certain skills.
Sure.
Now, some of us never know which are the special skills that we have. I was lucky enough to learn at a fairly young age something at which I was proficient.
Did you think you could make a career at? I mean, I guess you knew because you watched sports, but did you think like it was something that you might be able to make a career out of, or it was a skill that you knew you had and you were like, okay, now what do I do with this?
Well, the fact of the matter is, Jess, that like a lot of young boys in the United States, when I was growing up, I hoped to be a player. The heck with the talking. I wanted to hit home runs, and I wanted to play at Connie Mack Stadium, the home of the Phillies, which no longer exists. It was at 21st and Lehigh Avenue in North Philadelphia. And when I walked in there and saw all of that green grass and heard the young baseball fans chanting, "We want to hit! We want to hit!" And at night to see those big lights on that illuminated the field so they could play night games, oh my gosh. And the atmosphere, I used to look up at the press box and say, man, I'd give my right arm to be up in there. And I thought, well, maybe the vehicle for me to be at a Major League Baseball stadium on an everyday basis is announcing.
Mm.
At first, I thought, well, I wouldn't mind doing the radio or TV play-by-play.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Channel 48 and a junior and senior here, I sent out audition tapes. Oh, God, dozens, if not hundreds.
Wow.
Most of the time, I didn't even get a response. Sometimes it was a negative response or a polite response saying we have no openings. I was getting pretty good along the way. One of the things that I did on the side when I was in college, I would do statistics for visiting NFL teams at Franklin Field in Philadelphia, which was a former home of the Eagles. It preceded Veterans Stadium as the Eagles' home. And so I would work for announcers like Stu Nahan. He was the white-haired play-by-play voice in the Rocky movies.
Oh,
Stu Nahan.
okay, yep.
He was also a television personality at Channel 48. I'm telling you, that, going there as a mail boy, whew, I met so many people. The wrestling announcer, Buddy Wagner, I talked about. I grew up admiring Dave Zinkoff, the PA announcer of the Philadelphia Warriors, and then later the Sixers, admiring By Som and Bill Campbell on radio and television, and then later, of course, I worked with the great Harry Callis. So anyway, I was doing behind-the-scenes things that didn't pay very much, usually $15 to $25 a game, and the box lunch. That the members
Made it worth it.
The members of the media.
Nice little turkey and cheese.
Yeah. So I worked. I became so good at it that some of the announcers would pay me to go to other cities. Jay Randolph, the radio play-by-play voice of the St. Louis Cardinals in the 60s and 70s. I did a game for him here in Philadelphia, thanks to Stu Nahan recommending me. Jay thought I did such a good job, he would pay my transportation to go to Pittsburgh when the Cardinals would play the Steelers, to go to Washington when the Cardinals played the Redskins, to go to Baltimore when the Cardinals played the Colts. He would pay my way to New York when the Cardinals played the Jets or the Giants. So anyway, I was getting to meet people. I was always
Networking.
Something that I think I was very good at. And again, I would be willing to tell you, if I asked you, Rob, or you, Jess, name me 5 things that you really excel at. And I'm sure you could come up with 5 that
Might be hard.
that are your special talents. Well, besides being able to talk well, and I think I'm a pretty friendly fellow.
Yeah, I agree
get
with that.
along with people, and I get along with everybody. But I was always good at networking and meeting people, and I'm very proud of the diversity among my friends and associates. I put together my own production company, Play-by-Play Sports. I applied for so many jobs, Jess and Rob, that I couldn't get. I thought, how in
I'll do my own thing.
heck do you do this? So, working behind the scenes, a lot of NFL announcers, NBA announcers, basketball too. I paid close attention. I saw what went on and what was needed. Had a general idea of what it cost.
Talk to us about, you had to be geeking out when you started to break into the business, because you said before you wanted to be up in that box, and now you're in that box doing stats.
Right.
Like, how are you holding it together? Like, how you're not.
Well, I was starstruck.
Yeah, I'm sure
I saw
you
a
were.
lot of these well-known sportscasters and worked with Jack Buck.
Yeah,
who is,
well-known.
His son Joe Buck is the great network play-by-play voice now. And I mentioned Jay Randolph, and there was a fellow named Rick Weaver out of WIOD in Miami. He was the voice of the Dolphins. A guy named Al Wester with WWL New Orleans. He did Saints games, so I worked with him when he came to town. And again, they would this is where the networking, they would introduce me to people. And then the biggest break of my professional career came when the chief press box steward for the Philadelphia Eagles at Franklin Field, another wonderful man, almost like a second father, named Pat Cassidy. He was hired by the Phillies when Veterans Stadium opened in 1971. And so he used to see me working all these games, hustling around. I'd get there real early, long before the game started. Like if it was a 1 o'clock kickoff, I'd be there, 10 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning. And again, being there that early, you'd meet people, I'd get into conversations. Well, anyway, this gentleman who I befriended, and as the chief press box steward, he checked all the credentials. You had to have a credential to get in. We would have conversations like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you aspire to be? Sportscaster, did you ever think about PA announcing? I said, oh, I'd love to do that too. He said, well, Veterans Stadium had just opened in 1971. And he said, we're contemplating making a change.
Oh.
I said, oh my God. He said, I think I can get you an interview with the guy in charge. That's Bill Giles, who later became a Phillies owner, but who at that time was like director of marketing and promotions and later, senior vice president and then part owner. He said, I think I can get you an interview. And it's, oh, Mr. Cassidy, I couldn't thank you enough if you could arrange that. He said, okay, here's my card. Give me a call next week, and I'll see what I can do. Called him next week. He said, I got you an interview. And I said, oh, my goodness. He said, now, that's as much as I can do.
You're on your own now, kid.
That's plenty. That's plenty.
Yeah, you just got to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. I thought that if I had the chance to demonstrate my baseball knowledge, my speaking ability, that I could make a favorable impression. And because a lot of these tapes, Jess and Rob, that I sent out, I don't even know if many of them even were watched or listened to, So, yeah, I mean, that's still, that kind of thing still today when a young person's looking for a job, or can you get to the right person, And anyway, so I met with Bill. Bill Giles asked me a lot of baseball questions, asked me about Phillies history. I know Phillies history. I came up strong on all of those. And then he said, how well do you know baseball? And I explained that I did well. And he said, our PA announcer has to also operate the game in progress scoreboard. That is, you have to keep track of the balls, strikes, outs, runs, hits, errors, and the line score.
While you're announcing, not too much to ask.
Well, I was a very good Little League player, all-star for a couple of years, and when I loved baseball so much. When I was done, I would go to the little press box at Mount Ephraim Little League and keep the balls and strikes. It was nothing.
This was meant to be then. This was easy.
And being a Phillies, I used to lay in bed. Now, the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants left New York following the 1957 season. And they became the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants in 1958. I used to lay in bed at night because those games, 3-hour time difference. I'd be laying in. I'd be keeping balls and strikes on my fingers, I say that to people, they think, oh, my goodness, are you a nut?
You're like, yes, a little bit of a nut.
I was telling Bill Giles this. I used to lay in bed at night doing this. And I could see he was intrigued. I said, in fact, Mr. Giles, I don't know where I got this boldness from. I said, if you hire me, I will be the quickest and most accurate scoreboard operator in baseball.
Way to sell it.
I could see that he was struck by my boldness. He kind of arched back and looked at me, and I could tell without him saying anything, I think we have our man. Because one of the big reasons they were making a change is that the PA announcer who preceded me, from time to time, I guess, lost his focus and lost track of the count.
Oh, no. Well, he wasn't checking his social media back then.
No social media then. So needless to say, sports writers, sportscasters, ownership, front office people, fans in general would be annoyed, you know.
I'm sure.
So that's one of the reasons that they were making this change. The man who preceded me, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to act like I'm being critical.
Sure,
He's a wonderful man, had a beautiful voice. But that's why they were making the change, because they needed to get better in the scoreboard operation. The catalyst for so many nice things that have happened to me in my life is getting that Phillies job, starting in April of 1972.
Do you have a favorite memory from all? I mean, I'm sure 50 years, right? It's hard to pull a favorite memory, but anything that really stands out?
The 2 World Series that the Phillies won are the highlights by far. Announcing the Major League Baseball All-Star Game in both 1976 and 1996. And the Phillies are going to host it again in 2026. That could be my third.
I don't think already trying to get tickets.
I don't think there's too many PA announcers that have announced multiple Major League Baseball All-Star games, so that would be something unique. That's really exciting. All the biggest stars in baseball. At the 1976 Major League Baseball All-Star Game, Robin Jess, I introduced the then President of the United States, the Honorable Gerald R. Ford, to throw out the first ball. So that was pretty exciting. And I mentioned, I think before we started taping, that I've introduced 4 presidents of the United States altogether. The other introductions, actually it was President George W. Bush at the 2003 Army-Navy game at Lincoln Fun. Oh, I did Army-Navy football for many, many years.
And Eagles football. We were season ticket holder.
29 years,
My parents had season tickets. They had season tickets in Franklin Field. I don't remember, obviously, Franklin Field.
Yeah.
But we'd hear you from all the Buddy Ryan years, Rich Kotite years. We heard to then, too.
Reggie White.
That's right.
Number 92. Oh, I love doing the Eagles games, too. I did a PA for Temple football, filled in doing Villanova football. I did radio play-by-play for Temple football from 1977 through 1983. I did University of Pennsylvania football on the radio through my production company. You know,
the one you started on your own, right?
Yeah. I produced high school basketball, Big 5 basketball for 21 years. And then I later was hired full-time by Drexel following my Big 5 years and produced their men's and women's games.
So you're there every home game. You're with the Phillies every home game. You don't travel for away games, right? You're more...
No. The Phillies, for many, many years, as a perk to the full-time employees and sometimes even special part-time employees, which is a category under which I qualify, they would allow the employee and his or her partner to go on a road trip. And the Phillies would take care of the travel, hotel, take us to the games. The Phillies were kind enough to take my wife, Kathy, and me. Oh, I didn't even mention my wife all this time we've been talking. My
Get her in now. Get her in now, quick.
Oh, my gosh. Well, talk about great things that happen to you. My wife actually worked at the Phillies before I did.
Oh, my gosh.
Is that how you met her?
Mm-hmm.
Love a meet cute. Okay, tell us how you met her.
You've now got Jess's attention fully.
Well, Kathy, her maiden name was La Spada. She was working in Phillies sales and marketing. Worked very closely with Dave Montgomery, who later became Phillies president and part owner. And so she started working there in 71. I started working in 72. We met each other and started dating in 72 or 3. And then we were married July 13th, 1974. But here is a beautiful lady who very gregarious, very friendly, beautiful.
He said beautiful like 3 times.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, just in case you hear this, Kath.
Yeah, we didn't put it in there extra.
I don't need any prodding to compliment my wife.
I
She
love
deserves
it.
I have spoken of her, been lucky enough to be honored, I was telling you guys, by a few sports halls of fame. The Phillies had a very nice event for me for my 50 years as PA announcer, and a lot of dignitaries and VIPs, came to that game. And before a crowd of, 40,000, I proudly talked about everything my wife had done for me, provided us with 2 beautiful children, and did a magnificent job at home with the children. After our son was born in 1980, what a great year that was for us. Phillies won their first ever World Series. Our son Darren was born. Matter of fact, you guys will get a kick out of this. 3 years later, when the Phillies won the National League pennant again and faced the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series, in 1980, the Phillies beat the Kansas City Royals. It's 3 years after Darren, our daughter Courtney was born.
They were like little good luck charms.
Both of our children have worked at the Phillies during their college years.
Oh, get out.
Yeah. Darren worked in the video services department where Mike Lecision is now. Our daughter Courtney worked at CBS 4 in Rock Island, Illinois. That's the Quad Cities. She worked in that market. She worked in Southwest Kentucky, just across the Kentucky-Tennessee border from Nashville, at a town called Hopkinsville. But she was very good. She liked it. But she didn't like being out in the sticks, and...
But still maintain her Philly sports roots?
Yeah.
I imagine they have to be Phillies fans.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes.
Oh, good.
In fact, they both did such a good job part-time for the Phillies and then full-time. Courtney later got a nursing degree at Drexel. She decided to leave communications and got a nursing degree in the accelerated nursing program at Drexel University, where she graduated summa cum laude. That's higher than magna cum laude. She was doing quite well there. She met her future husband, and they just presented us with a granddaughter. I was telling you, Jess, on the way in. Saturday morning at 1:45, we have a grandson.
Congratulations.
Too. Yes, thank you.
And so I got to ask, so you've been through Connie Mack, you've been through the vet, you've been through CBP. I love CBP, but I love me some vet. Which one? I still haven't watched the video of the vet implosion. I can't watch it. It's too.
I haven't seen that,
It is. Did you?
Yes.
It's too hurtful to watch. Yeah. I had so many good Eagles memories there and such. You got a favorite?
Citizens Bank Park. It's more of a baseball. Well, Connie Mack Stadium. That's been demolished since the mid '70s. I saw many games there, and I just love that old ballpark. It was getting really old.
Towards the
when
end.
the Phillies moved, my goodness, what history. It was also home of the Philadelphia Athletics, who had a baseball dynasty back in the early 1900s. Citizens Bank Park is more like a baseball park with natural grass. Yeah. The vet had turf. I don't know whether you guys are aware of this, but I'm like the only PA announcer in Major League Baseball that announces the starting lineups from the field. Most of them do it in a booth.
Yeah.
You don't see them. I'm visible. Bill Giles and Dave Montgomery thought that it would make for a warmer connection to have their PA announcer
with
visible, and as opposed to this disembodied
voice of God that comes over.
Yeah, where's it coming from? Who is it? And so I do think it has created a certain warmth between the fans and me that I'm grateful for. Now, remember, I did football statistics going way back to the days of Franklin Field in '68. In 1985, the Eagles hired me to do their PA announcing, and I replaced Matt Gukas Sr., who was a great basketball player and a great announcer. And I used to, mimic him as I did Dave Zinkoff growing up. Tried to carry on his great tradition, at Eagles games.
You're an icon in the Philadelphia sports world. I mean, you might as well have played. You might as well have been on the field, because I feel like people know your name just as well as all the players' names. So what advice do you have for kids that are counting the balls and strikes on their hand and people kind of just pursuing this as a career path?
Well, first of all, Jess, let me see if I have any extra money that I can give you for that. And
he didn't give me any money, so just so we know it wasn't a bribe.
Thank you for your kind remarks. Stick to it. Don't give up on yourself like I did once upon a time. Give it your best. And if you really want something, it's a wonder that my nose isn't flat pressed against my face. I had so many doors slammed. I got so many turn downs. Hey, you need more experience. Well, if nobody's going to hire me, where am I going to get more experience?
That's always the hardest part about getting your foot in the door.
Networking, getting to be, I mentioned Pat Cassidy, who arranged that interview for me with Bill Giles. If I don't get that interview with Bill, this probably doesn't happen.
Right.
And the Phillies, I met my wife there, my kids worked there. It opened the door for the Eagles.
Yep.
Big Five basketball, Temple football, Penn football. Oh, I also did the Army football. I co-hosted the Army football highlights on national cable. For
Dan,
3
did you
years.
have any free time?
Well,
That's probably why the marriage works so well, right?
well, I eventually had to leave teaching because I realized that if I would forever be a full-time educator and a part-time sportscaster, sports announcer, if I chose to remain an educator. I thought, you know what? You only go around life once. I think I'd like to try it. I mean, maybe I'll fall on my face, but if I don't give it a try, I'll never know. I had already formed my production company. I started that in '76. And so in 1980, it was a pretty big leap of faith. I left a full-time teaching job with health and retirement benefits. I wanted to get a leave of absence. And the leave of absence was a fallback if things didn't work out for me as a sportscaster. Because, as I say, our son Darren was born in '80. I had my wife and I were married in '74.
Yeah,
I had
responsibilities.
A wife, and family to support, and our daughter in '83. I still thought that I could make it, and for my production company, I had to put up a significant amount of money. I paid for all the airtime. I paid the other announcers. I had some great announcers work for me, and Merrill Reese, one of my best friends in life, the great play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Can you just say his name, because I feel like I can hear you saying that
Merrill Reese. I'm having
That's
lunch
it.
with Merrill tomorrow.
Oh, well, tell him we said hi. No, he
Yeah,
won't know us, but
yeah. And Merrill, besides being a great football play-by-play announcer, by the way, Bill Campbell was another play-by-play voice that worked for me. Scott Graham, another great voice. I was very proud of my little production company. We did many Big Five basketball games. Later, Drexel, I mentioned Temple football, Penn football.
Well, before we wrap up, though, I want to talk about, because we talked about your time here at the Phillies and the history that you have possibly to make. If you could just walk us through what that looks like. You're in your 52nd year, you said you're coming into?
Yeah, it's actually 53rd, but there was that 1 year that I couldn't announce any regular season games. That was the pandemic year, but it's also the year that they found carcinoma and removed it. And I had, radiation following surgery. And I had, I would say 26 surgeries, a couple of them major. Many of them were cosmetic. Boy, was I a freak show when I first
Were you
I'm not
concerned?
good looking now, but
Are you concerned that it was gonna?
I was a pretty good looking guy at one time.
Yeah, you still are. You still got it.
I mean.
Were you concerned that it was going to impact your voice when you were having all the surgeries?
Yes.
Because you sound exactly the same.
Well, you're kind to say, but the truth is, Jess and Rob, there are certain phonetic combinations that are difficult for me.
Okay.
I don't have any teeth on my upper right side. You can't even see it. I can only open my mouth about a third as wide as it should go. The fact that I can still talk well, is a tribute to my doctors, that's for sure. But with God's blessing, He's allowed me to continue, announcing, which gives me so much joy. But it was a challenge.
Yeah.
What was kind of neat, and the Phillies were encouraging all the way. Hey, we can't wait for you to get back. The fans miss you. We miss you. And my bosses were calling, and Dave Buck and Mark DiNardo. And I said, and I asked my doctors, will I be able to talk? So we've had opera singers have this, and they sung again. So, well then, here
now,
we go.
Are you singing opera at the same time?
La Donna Mobile, would you like that?
Okay.
Okay. I was very fortunate to recover, and what I thought you might get a kick out of was the year that I returned was 2021, and now I have been out for a year, and the doctors told me it might take a year with all the rehab and healing that was necessary, and so they invited me to come down to the ballpark and reaccustom myself to the booth, the sound system, and everything. In a way, it was like another audition.
Wow.
I think they wanted to see if I still had it, and they were going to give me all the support that I needed.
Sure.
Right.
But I think they wanted to hear for themselves where I was now in terms of performance ability, and could I approach what I used to do. And I said, sure, I'll come down. So when I went down, it was March of 2021, a number of co-workers from the front office came out and sat in the stands to hear me. And, I did my traditional welcomes, and I did a few lineups. They had tears in their eyes because I could still talk well. And
the worst.
And so I was elated, of course, and they were too.
Yeah,
because
big relief for everybody.
They didn't know what I was going to sound like. Could I perform at a high level? Because as much as they were kind to me and supportive, they have a entertainment level to maintain. I mean, they can't do it with someone who's deficient.
Sure.
And so thankfully, I can still talk.
And we need it this year. We got to come back. We need to go. We need to get to that
that's
series. We need to get that ring finally. For these guys.
It's talking about announcing for just a moment, if I may.
Yeah.
Some people in the business, public address announcer, I think they feel like the best PA announcers are those who shout and and see, I'm the antithesis of that. Now, I'm not like Bob Shepard, one of the great PA. Bob, very Stentonian, deep voice, slow delivery.
Direct jitter. That was my growing up.
Okay.
Number
Wasn't I really
7.
good?
You were good.
You're right. That is really good.
See, she's got a second career coming.
One of the things that I do before any game or event, I did it with the Eagles, Phillies, Army, Navy football. I go over the rosters, make sure I know how to pronounce every name. You owe it to the participants, the fans, to get the names right. And some people, a lot of the public relations departments of all the teams provide you with phonetic spellings, so you know how to say the names. If I'm uncertain, I'll ask like visiting announcers, visiting public relations people. Sometimes I'll broadcasters. Sometimes I'll go down on the field and ask a manager or coach or even the player himself, like JT Realmuto. And I've heard some of the other announcers saying JT Realmuto. I asked JT himself, and he said it's not moo like a cow. Moo. No, mew. Now batting for the Phillies, number 10, catcher J.T. Realmuto. But any name that I'm uncertain about, I do that with. And I think that's one of the cardinal rules of PA announcing. The other thing that I think I have learned to do, and this wasn't something that was necessarily taught me by my parents, because most of the speech direction or rules that I've learned have come from them. But what I learned from a performance standpoint was listening to some of these other great PA announcers. And like I said, not shouting all the time. There's a time to raise your voice. There's a time to lower your voice for effect. There's a time not to say anything at all and let the moment speak for itself. And I think I'm pretty good at that. Knowing when to raise my voice
Different
or lower my voice or pause for effect. And in fact, when I go over a script before a game, I'll go over that script several times, and I'll be making notes to myself, underlining words. I want to hit this one harder, might be a name, or it might be an accomplishment, or before I say Dick Allen, I'm going to pause, and so I think I've become pretty good at that. And I think the fans appreciate that. Not that I invented it.
But
I learned it from Dave Zinkoff,
Right.
Buddy Wagner.
You put your spin on it, though.
Yeah.
You put your spin on it.
Yeah. And so I've taken elements from each.
Yeah.
And Jay Randolph, Jack Buck, Harry Callis, Bison, my dear friend Merle Reese. In listening to them, and all of them, of course, have many vocal talents and strengths. So, but I've taken like one from this one from that one. I tried to incorporate it in my repertoire. The Bob Shepard story, In Deference to You with Derek Jeter, Jess. So, one of the greatest baseball players who ever lived is Hall of Famer Mickey Mantle. And one of the great names that Bob started in 51, his final year was 2007. So when he would announce, he would say, now batting for the Yankees, number 7, Mickey Mantle, number 7. He would start with a number, end with a number. Bob Shepard started his PA career with the Yankees in 1951, same year that Mickey Mantle started, 51. In 1956, Mickey Mantle won the Triple Crown, highest batting average, most home runs, most RBIs in the American League. At the New York Sports Writers Dinner that year, Bob Shepard was either introducing somebody or had a role in some way, as I've been involved with the Philadelphia Sports Writers, and Mickey Mantle was being honored. So in a VIP cocktail party that preceded the banquet, Mickey Mantle came up to Bob Shepard, and he said, excuse me, Mr. Shepard, I'm Mickey Mantle. And, of course, Bob Shepard knew him.
Yeah.
And,
I hope so.
I don't know if they had met before that. They probably did. See, Bob stayed up in the booth. I'm down on the field, so I get a chance to meet a lot of these guys, Mickey Mantle says, Mr. Shepard, I have to tell you something. I get goose pimples every time you introduce me. He said, Mickey, so do I.
Rob, Dan Baker in studio. So I did a little something after we.
You did.
And it was super fun. Dan was kind enough to record an announcement using my husband's name and a number that he used to play baseball with. He actually announced him as if he were batting for the Philadelphia Phillies. And let me tell you, my husband has not stopped playing it.
You got like Wife of the Year award for that one?
Literally, he texted to people and they were like, your wife is Wife of the Year. How cool is this that you have Dan Baker announcing you?
Well, you're done now. 2024 is over. You can do whatever you want now.
I know. For I think like 5 years. Thanks, Mr. Baker, for helping me make a dream come true for my husband, pretending that he's batting for the Phillies. But
but he was great though. Dan has such a huge voice.
I know.
In the studio, stood up a couple times, knocked some things around here, but that's okay.
I know. I wish that people could have seen the way that he engaged, physically in the studio, because you can tell he probably gets so excited up in the box watching the games, and you could
tell he loves what he's doing. And it's great to have him still around and setting records. He's what, 50 plus years now.
Yeah, I think he said it was a couple more years until he was going to be setting another
Yeah, he's
record.
going to do it, no problem. He'll do it.
We love it, and we'll be celebrating Dan as he continues his journey with the Phillies. We're excited for baseball season. We're excited baseball season is here on Beyond the Brown and Gold.
You've been listening to Beyond the Brown and Gold on Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM. You can find more episodes on your favorite podcasting platforms by searching for Beyond the Brown and Gold or Rowan Radio On Demand.